morning. Good morning. My name is Mark Hurl. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of the Mainline Unitarian Church. It's great to have you with us this morning, whether in person or online. A reminder to all to kindly silence your cell phones while I introduce today's worship team. Our senior minister, Reverend John Morehouse, our director of Lifespan Faith Development, Dawn Star Saras-Borschelt, our ministerial intern, Caroline Bright, our worship associate, Kathy Landy, and the music for today will be performed by the MLUC Choir, David and Jody Brown. We are Unitarian Universalists, gathering a loving community of faith to support one another as we search for meaning and purpose, working together to bring compassion, equity, and responsible stewardship to the world we all share. We affirm religious freedom and celebrate diversity, as all are inherently worthy and dignified. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your journey, personal circumstance, rooting interest, you are welcome here. And especially warm greeting to those who are visiting us today. Please join us after the service for coffee and tea in the fireside room across the hall, and please take advantage of the welcome table in the atrium and our homepage, mluc.org. Now, Reverend John has a couple of items.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. A couple of quick items here. For the uninitiated, this is what's known as a QR code on the front. You take your phone, if you have one, you take a picture of it, and there'll be a link. And you open the link, and you download the MLUC app. You have your own app now. So don't say you haven't gone anywhere in this world, because you have one. Open it up, explore, find out what's going on. It's tied to our new website. It's really quite amazing, easy to navigate, lots of fun. After the service today at 11:30, we'll be having a discussion on the UUA Common Read on Repentance and Repair, and you're welcome to join us in the Greeley Library. As always, friends, if you've been coming for a while and you feel like this is your spiritual home, please stop by the welcome table and become a member. We'd love to have you with us. And in any case, the information tables are full of, well, information, so feel free to stop by and learn a little bit more about what's going on here. Thank you.
Now, if you will please join me in giving voice to our mission statement. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and a welcoming faith.
Our chalice lighting for today is titled That Which Abides. Through the week, this chalice abides, cupped and silent. Softly, it gleams in a dimly lit room, complete unto itself. Today, we come together as a community of faith, joyful and free. Our individual energies combine to spark the flame of truth. May we each draw strength for the other, and, like the chalice, may we be bathed in the fire of commitment to the social justice, equity, and peace. Now we invite you to rise in body and spirit to sing the opening hymn, number 359, When We Are Gathered.
I am sad to say that I have a terrible sense of direction. I think I come by it naturally because I remember when I was a kid that my grandmother was famous for being able to get lost driving to the grocery store, which was less than a mile from the house that she had lived in for at least 15 years by that point in time. I am really good at reading paper maps because my mom was a single parent and I was the oldest, and so I got to sit shotgun when we were going somewhere. She actually did have a great sense of direction, but sometimes we'd be going somewhere she hadn't been before, wasn't familiar with. So my job was to sit in the front seat and read the maps and tell her where we were going. So when I was a young adult, when I moved away from home and I was living in a new area where I didn't know how to get anywhere, I got myself a paper map. The problem with having a paper map is that I didn't have a navigator if I was going somewhere by myself. And it's actually really hard to read a paper map and drive at the same time. You know what's better? This is better. Specifically, this is better. And I know you can't see it, but this is my Maps app. And so when having a GPS separate device, or when we got smartphones in my life, has made my life so much better. Because I don't have to pretend I know how to get where I'm going, which I promise you I do not. I still, I've been working here for 6 years, and I still use the GPS if I'm going home at rush hour because it will tell me one of 6 different ways to get home on back roads. And I don't know which one is the best one, but it does. But anyway, so this is better. And this is an iPhone, and I'm using Maps, but you can also use Google Maps, you can use Waze, or there's a whole bunch of other apps that do basically the same thing. And do you know how they do that thing? All of them use GPS, which stands for Global Positioning System. And a key piece of the technology that makes this work was developed by somebody whose name I think we all should know. but I bet you don't. Dr. Gladys Mae West. And now I really want to know if she was named after Mae West, but I didn't find out. But she's an African-American mathematician. And has anybody heard her name before? One in the back, two in the front. Okay. So she was hired by the Navy in 1956, and she was the second black woman ever hired at the Naval Proving Grounds, and she was one of only 4 black people who worked there at that time. She worked there for 42 years. She retired in 1998, which is about when I got those paper maps and was trying to find my way around Maryland without being able to drive and read at the same time. It took another 20 years for her contributions to developing GPS to be widely recognized. She is now 97 years old. As far as I know, she's alive and well. In 2020, when she was 93, she told a reporter that she personally still uses the paper maps because she's used to it. And I'm telling you about her today because our theme this month is justice and equity. And one way we can seek justice and create more equity in the world is to make sure that we tell the stories of people who have often been left out of history because they were in some way different from the people who hold the most power. So I would like to invite you to say with me right now, but also every time you get in your car this week and you turn on your navigation, to say, thank you, Dr. Gladys Mae West. Thank you, Dr. Gladys Mae West. And there's, as John already told us, there are other cool things you can do with this phone that don't have to do with GPS, so I'm going to invite Caroline up here to tell you about some of them real quick.
Oh, they say in Unitarian Universalism we don't evangelize, except when there's a new app. Hi, Toby. Hi, buddy. So, what you are going to be seeing around the church starting today are going to be these posters. It's okay if you can't see this in detail right now. That's all right. We've got a preview up here. You can point your camera at that QR code. And what this is going to take you to is our new app. There are some really cool things about this. And I know some of you are thinking, I don't really use apps on my phone. That's okay. These cool features are also usable on our website. So you are already used to opening a window on your computer, going to check your email. Don't worry, you can do the same thing on the MLUC website. Remain calm. However, I will say, this is going to be a little bit easier to just look at it, how it's displayed on your phone, on your tablet, whatever device you're using. There is so much happening in the app. There's a lot of media. You can go and you can review Reverend John's sermons. You can even look at some of mine. You can watch it, take notes, and then email us your detailed thoughts on how you can tell we did not articulate the Oxford comma correctly in the list that we made. You can go in and you can check out Kathy Landay's moving meditation videos that are in there. You can check out Tina Adams' reflective readings in there. You can check out so many individual clips of things that have happened in worship. And if you're thinking to yourself, gee, I just really wish that I had a simple, easy way to take notes on Reverend John's sermons, good news. You can in the app. Now, what I would argue is the most important feature of the app and the new website, and this is what started this whole thing that I've heard from so many people in this congregation. How do I get in touch with this person? I want to find out who's in charge of this committee. I want to get in touch with the art group, and I don't know how. Well, good news. If you want to share a ride with someone to church, if you need a ride, if you're willing to offer a ride, you can click on the group. That's the ride share group. You can go in, and if that person has opted in as well, you can communicate directly with that person or with that group or with that committee, all in the app or in the messaging feature on the website. So you have a simple, secure way of communicating directly with your fellow congregants or with a staff member if you really want to, but kind of boring. But speaking of staff members, I heard today from someone, there is yet another scam email going around from Reverend Morehouse asking for money or gift cards. I was briefly hopeful that the email would have come from Reverend Caroline Bright, but I haven't made it yet. Someday there will be scams in my name, and I look forward to that day. But this is an example of why this is so important, why internet and digital security, like the options we have offered through this app and through the new website, are so important, and why protecting your digital privacy is absolutely critical. So I'm going to encourage you all, scan the QR code. If you're confused, just look for somebody who looks like they might be under the age of 50 and ask them. Betsy's back there. She's 4, but she can help. She's going to be good. And I will be at an info table in the atrium as well to help with all things related to the new app and the new website. And we'll be doing that for the next few weeks. It's very exciting. It offers a new way to connect with church all the time, or just whenever you want to. Or if you don't want to come in person, you can just watch in the app. It's pretty great. So thank you. Who are we thanking, Dawn Star? Who are we thanking? Dr. Gladys May West for GPS, for the most important usage of our cell phones, and for the opportunity that it gives us now as a congregation. And now, I have the privilege of saying, children and teachers, please head to your classes.
You may have noticed I'm not Kathy. But I'm Liz Bligan, and I wanted to be the person to talk a little bit about PALS. The one thing I want, well, many things I want you to know about PALS. Kevin and I have been supporting PALS for a long, long time. He transports cats and kittens from the shelter to the vet and back, and we foster fail. And one foster failure we had was olive oil. And I want you to know that PALS never gives up. They rescue off the streets the most horribly harmed, injured, ill kitty cats. Olive was found on the streets bleeding from an empty eye socket. So they took her in, they got her fixed up, and we fostered her. And then we failed because we kept her. Because I want you to know they don't give up, and they help these kitties, and then they put them into homes where we're going to be able to help them become really wonderful snuggle bunnies, because she was a real snuggle bunny. Sadly, she fell over and died one day. We have no idea why, other than maybe she had a tough start, since she was found on the streets missing an eye. But please know that PALS doesn't give up on these kitties, and most of the time, they actually save their lives. Sometimes they do end up having to euthanize, but most of the time, they actually save their lives. So please do give generously to PALS. They really are a wonderful organization. Thank you.
So will the ushers come forward, and if you wish to make a donation, you can follow the instructions online if you want to do it that way. Thank you, Liz. Lunch at the Black Cat, anyone?
The piece we're about to play for you is by Black Jewish American composer James Lee, who is currently one of the fastest rising stars in the American music scene. I'd like to play a couple of excerpts from this piece for you because it's quite a journey. It's an emotional experience, a roller coaster almost. You will hear some, I think, pretty extreme dissonance like this. You'll also hear some extreme consonance, as in the main melody that occurs throughout the piece, and it sounds like this. And my favorite part, which is kind of consonant and kind of dissonant, a sort of pointillistic, ethereal piano melody in the strange and asymmetrical meter of 7 that sounds like this. So listen to how James Lee weaves all of these ideas together to create a beautiful, compelling tapestry of a piece.
Thank you. Your gifts are such a gift to us. So we will now have the usher bring forward the gifts from the congregation.
As has become our practice, when we accept these gifts from our community, we say together an affirmation of gratitude. The words are in your program or on the screen. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Thank you. Candles of Community is the time in the service when we light candles for joys, celebrations, or sorrows that we experience in life. We do this in a spirit of loving kindness and support for one another. After each candle is lit, we will say, "We hold you in our hearts." I'd like to start candles this morning with a short prayer for the larger community. We remember in our hearts with caring and love for the Israelis and the Palestinians who have suffered loss of life and pandemonium in their communities. We cry with you as we wish with all our hearts for an equitable solution. For America, we pray for civility, stability, and a willingness from our legislators to work for us, the people. With these hopes and wishes, we hold ourselves, our country, and the world in our hearts. Pat Jordan lights a candle of sorrow for her 92-year-old brother-in-law, Jack Gallagher, who passed away recently. She says that when he'd come to visit for a few days, he and Rich would enjoy telling family stories and would sing old-timey songs together with great gusto. I'd set out a small table on our tiny deck so that Jack could go out to smoke his cigars and come back in loudly reciting the first lines of The Raven or the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Rich and I will miss him. For Rich, Pat, and Jack, we hold you in our hearts. Pat Hennessy would like to light a candle of love and concern for her absolutely adorable 2-year-old grandson, Emmanuel, who will have surgery tomorrow. He is having his adenoids removed. Hopefully, this will make him much more comfortable. For Pat, Emmanuel, and all his family, we hold you in our hearts. We light a candle of concern for Suzanne Solomons as she recovers at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital. For Suzanne, we send many wishes for a smooth healing journey, and we hold you all in our hearts. Dee Owens asks to light a candle for Kit Burns as she recovers at home after a surgery. For Dee and Kit, we hold you in our hearts. And for all those joys and concerns and sorrows that we hold close within, we hold you in our hearts. Well, here I am dressed in my funny clothes again. So in their order of service, you may have noticed that we will have a moving meditation today. So the movements that I'm going to be doing are based on the ancient Chinese practice of Qigong. Qi means life energy, and Qigong means the cultivation of that energy. So I'm going to move to the side, and can you have me? Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. So if you have uncomfortable shoes on, you may want to remove them because we are going to be standing up, and you will need to move a space apart from your person that you're next to. You can move into the aisles if necessary. You can come up here with John and me if you like. So we will begin. And we will begin with a bow. The movements are simple. I won't be saying anything to tell you how to do them. I'm only going to be saying in and out for breath, since the purpose is for a moving meditation. And I hope that you all will be able to just go into your body and have that body feel like letting you get out of your mind. So you can just imitate my movements. I am going to be stepping shoulder width apart. I will be bending my knees, but I'm also going to be unbending my knees. So don't try to keep your knees bent the whole time. Okay, we'll step out. Breathe in. And out. In. Out. In. And out. In. Out. In. Out. In. out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, and 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 out, in. At this point, ladies, women, put your right hand forward. Gentlemen, put your left hand forward. As we breathe out, we're going to be placing our hands on our dantian, which is right below your navel. Take some breaths. Feel the peace within and enjoy the chi energy that you have created in your body. And bow.
Well, thank you for coming to our service today. I'm all done. I don't know about you. I got so much chi flowing through me, I think I might just float out of here. I love when we do the embodiment of the Spirit in whatever way we find moves us the most. And I'm always glad when Kathy can come and share her incredible gifts with us. I think a lot about how we love ourselves and we love one another. It's such a complicated idea, this idea of love. We come up on St. Valentine's Day on Wednesday, a complicated holiday, I think, for some of us. It's a tangled web, love is. It's a tangled web because we celebrate it and yearn for it and bemoan it and wish it were so. I've always been fascinated by the many facets of love, the romantic love, what is known as eros, the love of family and the love of friends, philia, as in Philadelphia, the love of the other, and even the love of our enemies, as Jesus had asked us to do, which is known as agape. Why are there so many kinds of love and so few words for it in the English language? Even from I love you to I absolutely love this is a completely different way of looking at love. Eskimos have something like 17 different words for snow. We only have one for love. On cynical days, I will often dismiss love, especially when I see the news, as I know many of us have on our hearts this morning. It's a broken world, friends, and we need to love the broken world as much as we love the world that is all around us on every day. I remember one colleague of mine who found out that she would have to commit her son to a lockdown unit because he had come at her with a kitchen knife. He was struggling with drugs and the sudden death of his father. She was a single mother, but what she had was the love of her congregation. It was that amazing moment, she told me, when I all of a sudden didn't realize that I would be surrounded by a community of love. I, who thought everything was going well, suddenly found myself without anything. The world pulled out from under me. Like speeches scheduled and project deadlines agreed to, small things like clothes at the dry cleaners, the food taken out to thaw for the dinner. She said no one's daytimer lists death all day Wednesday as the final appointment. This mother of a troubled teen and her congregation soon realized the embodiment of love in a different sort of way. The brownies, which would be the leading edge of a tsunami of food, the neighborhood men who would come and drywall the playroom and build shelves, the people that would never let her go. Love, like such as we experience here in this congregation, comes in so many widely unexpected and seemingly at times unearned ways. It is a miracle that we are together. It is a miracle that good still happens in the world. It's also a miracle that love is more than just what we feel individually, because you can love the world we're in, this broken, troubling planet we're on. We have a wider love, friends, a wider love for all that is beautiful in the world. We have partners in justice, such as the Interfaith Hospitality Network, the work we do in climate action, UU Justice PA. These folks are also working for love. After the sermon last week, someone came up to me and said, I want to work towards justice, I really do, but I'm not one to be lobbying lawmakers or protesting on the street. I told her then, and I'm telling you now, neither am I. Truth be told. I, like many of you, am not inclined to do active justice work. And some of us think that's the ideal of the world. You can't actually be doing justice work unless you're on the front lines. But beloveds, I am here to tell you that's not so. Just love, more than just merely love, but love for justice is more than just being on the front lines. The people who exist to do that work are wonderful and necessary, but the softer justice, that softer love for the wider world, I think that's more like most of us, isn't it? It comes in writing postcards, like I'm asking you to do after the service today, to work on a gift ban for politicians. But it also comes in the smallest ways. It comes when we're collecting recyclables, we're loving the planet. It comes when we are working towards someone who needs something desperately. You are doing the work by paying witness to the struggles of the world. That's why we are here together, and that's why we do the work together. Dory Cheng, in her book, Social Justice for the Sensitive Soul, a wonderful title, says, most of us don't know what relational justice looks like, and yet we do it all the time. We are supporting the people who are doing the work. Those $5 donations, they do actually make a difference. Our work as a congregation is more than just standing up for the oppressed and the forgotten. It's keeping the relationships alive that keep life worth living. She cites the work of the early civil rights movement. She cites the work that if it hadn't been the work of hundreds of people who supported those active civil rights workers that were out on the street, we actually wouldn't have the changes we have today. And occasionally someone from the quiet ranks would stand up, or in this case, sit down. Rosa Parks wasn't the first person to sit down for freedom on that bus. But what made Rosa Parks special is that she was exactly the kind of person who would not put herself out in front. And with training at the Highlander School in Tennessee in nonviolent direct action, along with hundreds of other quiet people who supported her, she found the courage to do that. That is just love. Thousands of people supporting hundreds of people doing the work. It's a start, friends, but it's not the end. Because I believe that love is an exchange between two people or many people for the cause that matters most to them. And we also know that this doesn't always work out, right? Sometimes love is not exchanged. It remains true in our struggle against racism and the intersectionality of all those other injustices in the world that we aren't always able to make things happen. Nor are we always able to find the love or receive the love that we're giving. It's perplexing, that side of love. Every one of us, save the fabulously wealthy and good-looking, has loved someone who didn't return the affection, right? Has this happened to any of you? Anyone in here? No? No? Okay, wow. You're all much more attuned to the world than I am. It was very bad for me in middle school, actually. I so wanted to be Victoria's boyfriend. I would hang around her locker, right? We'd walk home together even though I didn't live anywhere near her. I had to take the bus to get home. We would just talk. And one time, as corny as this sounds, I asked if I could carry her books, and she said yes. Whoa. But before I could ask her to marry me, she turned and said, "Listen, this doesn't mean you're my boyfriend." And those words that I've always hated, we're just friends. Crushed. Fighting back tears, I carried her books anyway, rationalizing that she could change her mind, right? She didn't. Does this sound familiar? And that was middle school, so you can see how scarring it is for me these many years later. But here's the thing, I never stopped loving her, at least until the end of the school year. Unrequited love is sometimes the most powerful love of all. Sometimes we put love into another person and it is not returned. Sometimes we put love into a cause, into the world, and it just seems to be slipping farther and farther from us. But here's the thing. The unrequited love is still love. As Alexandra Gustafson wrote, those who love unrequitedly know that friendly advice to move on is no doubt meant well, but misguided. Proposed remedies might give us time and opportunity to heal from the hurt of the disillusionment and the unrequited, but they will not cause us to stop loving. In fact, it is not sufficient itself to stop us loving. Prudential reasons to fall out of love, she wrote, simply miss the mark. Given the nature and structure of love is irrational, unrequited love is bitter, but it can be bitter-sweet. It can be tragic, but in a heroic way. To borrow from William Shakespeare, once in love, we can love someone even to the edge of doom. Unrequited love is deeply painful, whether it is to a person or to a cause. But I believe it can also be a sort of exquisite torture, if that torture worth bearing is the actual emotion of love in your heart. And that is why many of us continue to do the work of the world even though we feel as if the world is not responding. Love, this most perplexing source of inspiration and madness, is absolutely necessary for us to become human, right? Loving is necessary to being religious because everything that we hope for in a larger world, in the meaning-making of the world, involves a certain commitment, a certain love. It's not all intellectual, it's of the heart. Our Universalist forebears proclaimed that God is love. It says so on the altars. We can try to shelter ourselves from love's storms, but we will not be able to do it if we open ourselves up at all. And I'm saying today, open yourselves up. Those who have lived through the agony of love would not have changed that for the world if they had truly loved. Forrest Church, who died years ago, wrote in his book, Love and Death, that grief brings a potency to love. He said that from death, love lives, and in life, love serves. In death, love lives, and in life, love serves. It's a circle, really. Death brings power to love, and love serves the living before we die. This is what any of the tragedies that we face in the world, whether they are personal or collective on this hurting planet, reminds us. We must continue to love, even though we will lose. Because to not love is so much the worse. None of us are going to get out of this life alive, friends, if you don't know that. But how widely we love determines how much we will be able to live the life before us. And if you're here for the very first time, or you're here for decades, you are already living out the love of a community that you just walked in the door to. We trust those we love, whether it's a romantic love or even a community, because to not do that is so much worse. The power to love widely is like a train that we're stepping on. And that's really what's been happening here at Mainline Unitarian Church. This energy we're feeling, friends, is really the energy of love. It's the energy of connection. It's the energy that something actually could happen that could change the world. Love struggles with our lesser passions for what is the right thing to do, right? When we widen our love, whether it's to a person or a cause, it will mean that our hearts will sometimes be broken. We want to be right, sometimes at the cost of love. Friends, that is a dead end. When our lesser passions fight for our better selves, when addictions, love of food and substance, attention and pride get in the way of the key relationships that actually make life worth living, well, then we know we have not reached love. I've seen this so often when couples have to reinvent their relationships. I've seen this happen so often when lives have to be reinvented after you've lost someone who was by your side for decades. And I've seen this happen when we have worked for causes that don't seem to change the world, but in fact they are. In fact they are. And this is an ideal that goes back all the way to the Bible, in the first love story of Adam and Eve, which Bruce Feiler says has all the right parts for the movie. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy, there's a tree, there's a snake. Mythically, though, and this is the important thing about that story, it does point out that there is an injustice at the heart of the garden, right? Where God says, I give you these two trees, the tree of immortality, which I guess is farther back in the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is right in the center of the garden. And of this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat its fruit. What are we putting the plate of cookies on the table for? And Eve, of all people, sees this injustice. She's the one that has the courage to love life and to love knowing more than to just let it pass over her. Why shouldn't we know this knowledge, she says to herself? Why is this tree even here, if not for us to know? And that independence is a kind of love of self that becomes the coming of age story that Adam and Eve are as they're thrown out of the garden. So she eats the apple. And Adam has to make the decision, as lovers often do, whether to be obedient or whether to stand by his woman. He makes the right choice. Now, there are other tellings of this tale. The one that I like the best is the time when Eve is all by herself originally. And she says, Lord, I have a problem. What's the problem, Eve? Says God. Lord, I know you created me and provided me this beautiful garden and all these wonderful animals and that hilarious comedy snake, but I'm just not happy. Why is that, Eve? Comes the reply from above. Well, Lord, I'm sick to death of apples, and I'm lonely. Well, Eve, in that case, I have a solution. I shall create man for you. What's a man, Lord? Well, a man will be a flawed creature with aggressive tendencies, an enormous ego, an inability to empathize and listen properly at times. All in all, will give you a hard time, but he'll be bigger, faster, a little more muscular. He's really good at fighting, kicking balls about, and hunting fleet-footed animals, and he will invent something called the Super Bowl. That sounds great, says Eve. Well, it's better than a poke and a stick in the eye, says God. Lord, is that it? Well, there is one condition, says God. What's that, Lord? You have to let him believe that I made him first. Ancient times have been teaching us the complexity of this dance we call love. People all over the world are still trying to find that place that we call love. Several years ago, Francis had the chance to hear Nelson Mandela's granddaughter speak. Solika Mandela was raising funds for a charity to help teenage girls escape abuse. She'd had a hard life. As she related that life about her famous grandfather, she noted that he had been in his early years a freedom fighter. He actually violently attacked apartheid officials. He bombed apartheid buildings. It was only during his 23 years of imprisonment on Robben Island that he began to understand that love had a place to play. And part of that was his relationship with Bishop Desmond Tutu. Bishop Desmond Tutu himself was actually quite quiet and avoided speaking out against the government, forged this relationship with Mandela. And as their relationship would play out, Mandela would become more introspective and Tutu would become more active. That's the dance of love. Their respect and love for one another changed not only South Africa, but ultimately the world, right? And while South Africa still today faces its own struggles, their leaders, their founding leaders, defeated the apartheid government with a quiet and persistent action that was fueled by love. And the Commission for Truth and Reconciliation was an extension of that love. These men, so many other women and men, change the world all the time. There are times when I know some of us think we simply can't go on with the world the way it is, that we'll retreat into our own shell. But friends, the world is calling to you. It's calling to all of us all the time, if nothing else, to simply stand witness to the tragedy. As Zolika said, when the world says give up, hope whispers one more time. Zulika Mandela died last September from cancer at the age of 44. Beloveds, our love is of actually immense proportions, extended to those we know and our persistence to extend to the thousands we don't. The spiritual is both internal and external. And where we put the emphasis is how we move through the world and change our lives and the lives of others. As Amanda Gorman, past Youth Poet Laureate of the United States, who spoke at President Biden's inauguration, reminds us, there is always light, if we're only brave enough to see it, if we're only brave enough to be it. So may it be, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 119. Please rise in body or spirit. Beloveds, we go out into the world to find love, to make the people of the world know they are loved. Go from this place knowing that you are part of a great movement. The coming and the going of love in our hearts will make the world a better place. This will be the beginning of our service truly, but let us remain seated for the postlude.